And we're live on mine as well. So, hello, Commanders. Commander Placer here. Welcome to a content creators roundtable discussion. Today we're talking about power play, whether or not it should be an open only, and I am with Paroxsym and Obsidian today.
So, hello.
Get your hellos in so people can hear you. Make sure check levels. We'll do a level check because it's always an interesting one.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
So everyone in my chat.
Later today had a little bit of technical difficulty at this end, so if you're getting any feedback from the other guys on my stream, do let me know.
At the same time, obviously, let me know all levels are okay and all that kind of stuff, because, you know, no one wants to get drowned out.
Yeah. So far, everything looks pretty good on my end.
Cool. Seems to be okay here. Oxy lives, huzzah.
I do. I'm alive. I did not die yesterday. Feels good, man.
That is definitely good news, I would say. So, I guess, are we going to explain why we are talking about this as a topic, I guess, and why it's come up?
Well,
Oxy, do you want to take that one?
Sorry, give me 1 second, I'm just trying to fix his headphones here.
yeah, looks like Obsidian's going to try and get his headphones sorted.
Yeah.
But, yeah, okay, so basically we're talking about power play and should it be in open play only. As that topic got brought up with the focused feedback, originally, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago now. And they came back with a bit of a modification to that idea. When was it? Just yesterday or the day before? Really recent. And they were talking about, instead of making it necessarily like just open only, they were talking about maybe making it so merits depreciate in solo or private group instead of just disappearing altogether. And so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about, to get you guys' feedback on that, discuss it amongst ourselves, and see if that's what we all like.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I guess, concept of. I mean, first of all, I'm not a fan of reducing content to any players. I always think that Elite Dangerous is a game where there's lots to be added, but things being taken away is always going to be a mistake. Because, you remove power play from people that are in don't play in open, and then it's a bit of a it just doesn't seem like a great idea.
I mean, personally, I would prefer open play be in open only, but that's because, like, for me, it's supposed to be a PvP mechanic, and currently most of the people that do it are doing it in private group and in solo, and so you're not getting it's not true PvP. It's just a numbers grind, and that hardly seems like the emergent content that at least in my mind power play was originally supposed to be. That's just kind of how I feel on that.
Yeah, the difficult thing is trying to get a measure for how many people are actually playing power play in each particular mode. How many people are playing it in open, how many people in solo. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, that by moving it over to open, you're kind of taking it away from people. But at the same time, we don't really know how many people are actually playing power play in solos. Is it a case that you're actually taking the content away from them, or is it a case that you're taking the option of the content away from them?
I mean, I guess, especially with after what has recently happened with Mobius and their BGS, which is a bit of an interesting argument for the power play being an open and BGS only being an open, but it was whether or not you're taking away the option. I mean, the option's there if you want to go into open to do it, but I think a lot of people tend to do power play just for the modules rather than for the purpose of power play, which is you expand the super factions. Is that the right word? Superpowers.
Superpowers.
Yeah, like
There
you know,
you
to expand them or to grow them. I don't think it's many people play power play in that way because there's very little reward to it.
Well, and it personally, the whole power play mechanic right now, I don't feel like it's engaging enough for most people to bother, getting involved, with it outside of just staying pledged for 4 weeks and then grabbing the module and moving on. So I think at the core of power play, it's just not as fun as it was supposed to be. Like it was going to be a PvP and RPer's paradise, and at least that's how I understood its original concept. But it seems to have fallen short of that, and it's just become a module farm. At least that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Am I wrong in thinking this?
I feel the same.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, what's the main primary motivator for people engaging in power play? Is it purely down to the fact that they want the modules? There's quite kind of an interesting statement that Sandro made in the recent forum post where he was suggesting that they would consider moving the module access over to another area of the game. So maybe, for example, moving the power play modules over to the tech brokers so they could be accessed through that instead of just through power play. Would that remove all motivation for people to actually engage in power play?
I mean, we've got a couple of guys in my chat who are, in particular, Chris Wu, who is he's a PvPer, one of the PvP community, and he's basically saying, what's the point of power play without PvP? And the only point at the moment for me is modules. That they get some interesting, unique modules which allow you to try out some different builds on ships you wouldn't normally try, and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of it. Like prismatic shields, get your Imperial hammers, pack hounds, all that kind of stuff that you might want, but you're not gonna do much with it, I guess. Most people just use to get the modules, and I think that's where a separation needs to happen.
I mean, you'll get no argument from me. I think the modules were originally meant to be I think they were meant to be kind of like a nice bonus. At least that's how it feels to me. But now they've become kind of necessary to certain ship builds and that kind of thing, where people feel almost obligated to get involved with power play to a certain extent just to get these modules. And I don't think that's really kind of in the spirit of the thing either.
That's kind of the thing, though, isn't it? The moment you start putting ships or modules as rewards for engaging in any activity in the game, that's going to become the prime motivator for people engaging in it. I mean, I think the case could be put that power play is about supporting the power you work for. That surely is the primary thing for it. But the moment you start dangling modules and stuff in front of people's faces, then they're going to start ignoring expanding their power in favour of, oh, I'm going to jump into that for a few weeks to unlock this module and unlock the other module.
Yeah, there's no benefit of staying pledged.
No,
once
you get your modules.
Yeah, it's just there is no point, and you never feel like there's a huge swing in power play anyway. Whichever system you're in, you don't feel like something has massively changed because a new superpower's taken it over. And in fact, that's actually quite rare for that switch to happen as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things they're talking about with the new proposals, trying to increase the rate at which those sort of switches can happen, which I think is something that would make power play a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I think one of Vortex in my chat actually just said that for him, the main draw for power play would be the strategy element. Because he's been running our BGS and Plater and I's player faction, and the whole strategy element of the thing seems to be what he enjoys. Now, I think at least for me, is that what a lot of the other power players enjoy doing? You know, would that be enough to keep people involved without the modules?
Well, that's kind of what I wonder. I think Plato brought up a really good point when he mentioned, I think it was Plato, unless it was you, Proxy, sorry. One of you mentioned just now about the effects of power play on each particular system, and that it doesn't dramatically change the overall feel of a system when it switches over to a different power. I think the same can be said for the background simulation as well. I mean, that does have some impact. It will have a bit of an impact on the amount of profits you can make in a system, and it will change some of the missions that are being spawned there. But overall, there's not really a different feel to the system. I'd love to see, for example, in a system that goes into lockdown or into a state of war, that you could dock into a station and you've got all the same kind of flashing red lights you get in systems that have been attacked by the Thargoids. Little changes
Something
like that
to indicate that there's actually a war.
It would give a very different feel to what's going on.
Well, you know,
a larger military presence out there.
Yeah, rather than just having your Eagles and Vipers floating around outside stations, maybe have something a bit more predatory out there. You know, anacondas waiting around outside stations, because you know their NPCs are free. They don't come from anywhere. They don't go anywhere, especially when it's system security. Follow them, they disappear. Especially if they leave system, they're not going to another system. That's not true. So they could just put them around just for a little bit of a dressing, set dressing. I think that's sometimes what's lacking in Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, just in that would perhaps be enough to get people involved in power play a bit more, if they could see the direct impact that their actions have on the game. I mean, obviously there is an impact because the systems change hands and you can see changes on the system map, but more the sort of changes we're just talking about, something a bit more vibrant, something you could feel a bit more. Would that perhaps have an impact on people's desire to get involved?
Now, I've had someone ask actually, so putting modules to one side, what is the purpose of power play as it stands? That's an interesting question, because so Frontier, the purpose stands that it's to encourage PvP. That's the...
Well, it also has a certain effect on the story elements too, at least in its original incarnation, as I understand it. Because it's supposed to be possible for one of the powers to go into turmoil enough times where they would be relay all together. And I think the one that's actually come closest to that is Archon Delane, where he's actually come close a couple of times to getting himself removed off the power play roster altogether. And that's supposed to have an effect on the story, by their own words. It would take me a while to dig out the posts that actually explain that, but as I understand it, there's supposed to be story implications that tied along into the power play. I'm not quite sure how they're going to work it though.
I do remember them saying that sort of thing right near the launch of power play, in addition to the fact that there'd be a lot more new factions or powers being introduced every so often. We've had one, I think.
Yeah, Yuri Grom, the Dangerous games. I've been actually, speaking of the Dangerous games and the introduction of Yuri Grom, it's been 2 years now, and we haven't had another one. I'm beginning to wonder if they're still planning on doing that to encourage, more player factions to get involved and possibly get into power play in the long run, etc., etc. Like, I do wonder what's happening with that. I mean, there's a little bit of a sidebar, but...
Well, good time for that would perhaps be when they do introduce the changes to power play. Bring it in with something like another Dangerous Games.
Yeah, it'd be great to see.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that the whole thing with power play, it just moves at perhaps a too slow rate. On the one hand, appreciate it's an online game, so things are always going to have to move at a slightly slow rate to allow everyone the opportunity to get involved with things. But I mean, I don't spend a lot of time looking tremendously closely at the power play map on the Galaxy map, but whenever I do look at it, I get the impression that nothing dramatically changes from 1 month to the next. Someone in the chat actually raises a good point about nobody actually caring about the powers.
Yeah, that's true.
Do we
Yeah.
have any reason to actually care about each of the characters there? Really?
Yeah, I really, for the most part, at least personally, I really don't care. The only reason that I even bother with power play at all goes straight back to the modules. That's it. That's the only reason I bother. And even then, I'm still very lazy about it. I think I've been pledged to my power now for like 23 weeks or something like that without even bothering to get the freaking module.
Yeah, actually, I've been waiting to get pack hands for months now, actually, and I haven't bothered just because I'm going to have to get into my cutter, go to a control system, and then just go back and forth with some fortification materials to the nearest system, and that's kind of all people do. Yeah, to get the modules, and I think has to be a separation between modules and power play. Get the modules out of it, and then incentivize power play and open. But like nothing too major. Whether it could be, I don't know, when you pledge to power, you can use their use one of their paint jobs, for example, because people love stickers. It's well proven. People love having stickers and shiny things to make their ships look a certain way, and just make them so that as long as you're pledged to that power, you can use it.
Give people a reason to care. That's a pretty good idea. It doesn't actually really give anyone any in-game benefits, does it? But it's things that are essentially there for you to unlock.
Yeah, I think it's currently, if you were to go into the livery, I think you've got, is it all of the power play decals available to everyone all the time?
Yes.
Yeah, that seems a little nonsensical to me. It's like, let's see, who am I pledged to? Arissa right now for the hammers. And I could throw on a Kumo Crew decal if I wanted and rep the pirates. That seems counterintuitive. And I don't know, it seems like it's not quite in the spirit of things.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It's daft. Very much.
And Lee Eberl in my chat says that he's hostile in Hilla because of his power play pledge, but nothing ever attacks him.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same here.
Again, that goes back to things not really having a dramatic impact.
Yeah. I do remember that it used to be different. You would actually get attacked by other power play NPCs that were, from the other side, but they changed that. Whoa, gosh, when did they change that? 2.3, I think. Don't quote me on that. It's been a good long while. They changed it to where the power play NPCs would scan you, and the only time they would attack is if you actually have power play merits for your chosen faction.
Yeah, I remember that one. That's whilst you're carrying out power play based activities, which is, again, if unless you're carrying the commodities, then you're not. Which is I don't know, it doesn't seem quite right, because if you're out murdering another faction's ships, you're out murdering their ships. You're that is your activity.
It sometimes seems that Frontier feel they're caught in between trying to please too many different people.
Yes.
Excuse me. I mean, on the one hand, you're getting people pledging to a power, and they want the sense of danger there. But on the other hand, you've got other people pledging to a power, and then getting frustrated because they're getting interdicted every 5 minutes. How do you find a balance between that? How would
you?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, especially given the limitations of the current mechanics in game. I mean, where's the middle ground? And I think what they did might actually be the only viable solution, given the way the game currently works. And So at least like if you're not actively engaged in things, you're not getting pestered. But the moment you start actually getting, actively engaged in power play, then you suddenly got a big target painted on your back. And so I can see that working, although it does kind of, to some people, will feel a little strange.
Yeah, I mean, understand that. So Simon in my chat's just asking about Exigius. I don't think any of us have heard from him today, have we? He was originally going to be here, but unfortunately we haven't heard from him. So he may turn up later, but at the moment he's not about.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lucky appearance from me, really, considering I can't normally make it on Fridays. I'm normally at work, but due to my current radioactive condition, I am able to put in an appearance, which is, it has its benefits.
And of course you're going to be doing your 24-hour stream soon, aren't you?
Yeah,
What time does it start?
12 p.m. So 12 p.m. BST, 24-hour charity stream in aid of the British Thyroid Foundation. Thyroid, not Thargoid. Just to make that exceptionally clear, because we get a lot of that. But yeah, it should be fantastic, and actually both Oxy and Obsidian will be joining me as well. Which
I'll be there tomorrow, yes. What time was it you're starting again?
12 p.m. BST.
Okay. 24 hours.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh,
It is a long one. I remember your...
yeah.
Yep,
Number 2
was the first one.
Why am I doing this? I was already thinking about it, like, oh no. Yeah. I mean, it'll be fine. It's normally it's normally hour 15 things start to get really rough. Then once you make it past hour 18, you feel like you're in the home stretch. That's previous experience.
Yeah. I know how you feel.
Now actually Turgeon's popped up in my chat, and he's made a good point, talking about his take where members of the Pilots Federation should never be put in a position where they have to pledge to anyone, because the commander's allegiance should always be to the Pilots Federation, which I guess kind of makes sense, but I do have a counter to that one, which would be that the Pilots Federation is essentially your license to kill, so it means you can go off and do whatever you like. You get some special treatment because you're the elite. It's kind of like, you know, in Deadpool, they've got that wonderful bar that you can go and pick up a hitman from. That's us. You know, that's the Pilots Federation. Because most of the activities that we do, which involve getting any credits, do involve blowing stuff up or doing, well, essentially actions that are war-related. But that's kind of the way I see it. So if you do decide that you disagree with what someone's doing, you can go and get involved if you like. But yeah, Pilots Federation, a special club.
General Ghost in my chat just says Plater versus Turge in Fight of the Century.
No, I mean, I'm happy to argue anything to a suitable resolution, but only because I like challenging people over their ideas to get the best out of their ideas, because there may be parts of it they haven't thought of, and I encourage people to do the same. How's that for deep? Oh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Would you like to see more stuff with the Pilots Federation going on in the game? I mean, aside from our ranks, we don't really hear anything about them.
Well,
Would you like to see more from them in there?
They just have really stingy payments with regards to killing Thargoids. That's the other thing that we see them from. You know, super stingy payments, and that's about it. And that is it's a bit naff. I would definitely like to see more. I want more storyline all the time.
So more storyline from the Pilots Federation, or more activities or things for us to be involved with?
I would like the storyline pushed to the front a bit more. I think that would be nice. I always think that it'd be very good to have storyline pushed to the forefront in Elite Dangerous and not make it kind of a background to what you're doing. And the only reason I say that, and I know a lot of people say that, oh, but that's not what the game's about. It's about blazing your own trail and you know, forging your own path and all this stuff. That's cool. I mean, but in the real world, I've got a mortgage to pay, so I go out and I get a job. And then on top of that, you know, I've got money to spend, so I like to enjoy my time and do things that I like to enjoy. And there's a drive behind everything. But in Elite Dangerous, obviously the drive is entertainment. But it would be good if there was a little bit more of kind of a storyline drive.
Yep. Just got a message from Turgeon here. Actually, is happy to join in with us if you guys are up for that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sure.
I don't know if one of you can invite him in because I'm not sure how to do that.
If you give me a second, I believe I can. I think. Oh wait, hold on. Turgeon.
And then there'd be 4 of us. You got him there?
He needs to accept the friend request I just sent him on Discord.
I can't believe I was so confused when you sent me a friend request today. I was like, wait, are we not friends on Discord? We've been talking for years, and we're at this point where it's like, wait, what? Wait.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it until I went to add you, and I was like, wait a minute, what?
Omni, the power play modules are engineerable, so you can have some actually really interesting effects on them, and it makes some of them a lot more viable. Like prismatics, for example, the fact you can have ridiculously high caps on your shield capacity is absolutely huge. My Corvette's got 6,222. It's obscene. The recharge rate is awful, but you can do it, and that's makes them good. Obviously, the Guardian stuff you can't do any of that on, which is a shame.
There you go. Turgeon should be in now.
Yeah,
Hello there,
people.
Turgeon.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Oh, not a lot, as usual. But yeah, thanks for adding me to this little group there. That's this is one that it's in a way it's close to my heart. Is this because it's the whole fundamental problem with this is it's a law issue again, isn't everything? Yeah, but I think I mean, I said this on the Lame Radio 200 thing the other day. Obsidian heard me on that one. I was saying that if I was writing an MMORPG that had factions of players in it that like to do a bit of PvP and aggro like you have with Warcraft and things like that, I would kill for the lore that's in Elite Dangerous, but it's lore that Frontier aren't using. And that's what really gets to me, you know? Because the way they've set everything up, they're missing a golden opportunity right from the start. Because everything that we do as commanders, because we're all commanders, we're all Pilots Federation, you know, that's the whole point of it. But there's no emphasis at all in Elite as it stands on the Pilots Federation. It serves no purpose in game at all, other than to be a trophy place for people with elite rank to go in Shinrata.
Yeah,
That's all it
unlock
serves.
rank.
Yeah, that's literally all it's for.
Well,
What would I do? I'll tell you. It's quite simple.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah. What I would do is I would have the Pilots Federation being the hub of pretty much all the missions you get, because really when it comes down to it, like Lady was just saying a few minutes ago, it's about money. It's about making money, and that's what you want to do as a commander. It's for you, for your benefit. And I view, this is odd because it harks back to my experience as a caricaturist in real life. As a sort of entertainment performy caricaturist person, and my brother is a close-up magician, so we're often doing the same sort of gigs, social functions, and you keep meeting the same people at these gigs. You don't know that you're going to be who you're going to be booked with because they come through different agencies, different thing. So you meet the same people and you go, oh yeah, I haven't seen you for a while, mate. Yeah, and you're all working at the same gig, and then you sort of go off, you know, and then you come back at another gig and you meet different people, and then you meet the same people again, and it's the same thing. You're all part of an agency that's booking you to do gigs, and you keep meeting the same mates, you know. And that's what I view that the Pilots Federation could be in the game. It's the agency that sets you up with the gigs. And the Pilots Federation's goal is really what all MMORPGs would love, and that's a permanent Cold War to keep everything in a status quo, because that's what RPGs like, because you don't want to change things too much because you're on a roll, aren't you? You know, you've got to have a permanent war going. And with the Pilots Federation, they want the status quo because that gives them the maximum influence in the galaxy and the maximum ability to keep missions going. So you destabilize the Empire in one place because it's getting a bit too big for its boots, you know, and it all serves the Pilots Federation's purposes because it means that they're the brokers, they're the movers and shakers in the galaxy that everybody turns to get the jobs done. But their own agenda is to keep everything the same for their own benefit.
And
so what I would
sorry, go on.
No, go on. No, I'm talking too much. Go on, make a point.
No. I was just going to add into to underscore your point there. Isn't in terms of law, the Pilots Federation also control Galnet?
Yeah, that is it exactly. Galnet was created by the Pilots Federation to collate trade data and news for the benefit of the members of the Pilots Federation. So, you know, you get the most up-to-date trade data. They give you all the news on where the best missions were going to be. That's what Galnet was for originally. That's how it was created. And what I would do in terms of PvP, because you can't have these power play mechanics and all these kind of things going on without PvP, because no matter what you do, people are going to want to shoot each other. And Pilots Federation law is basically a gentleman's club. The same way as when I turn up to a caricaturist gig, I'm not going to punch another caricaturist in the face because he's working there as well.
Exactly,
You know, it doesn't happen. It doesn't, because you booked as agents to work. You're on the same page. You're on the same side. You know, it's you against the people you're drawing as a caricaturist, you and your mates. So what I would do is I would have a facility in game where you have people that get fed up with the Pilots Federation, how they're doing things, the shadiness of it, and they break away on their own group. But because of the fact that they're broken away from the most powerful group in the galaxy, they're kind of restricted to working in anarchies. That's where they want to live. So you have this rowdy breakaway group of people that do what they want to do, unrestricted by anything. And on the other side, you have the Pilots Federation. So you've got two groups that you can PvP with. You can have your Horde and your Alliance there, you know? And it's set up to that. I mean, that doesn't exist in Elite Law, but you could easily introduce that. So you have the breakaway group on the other side and the Pilots Federation who routinely don't shoot their own members. And there's your PvP mechanic sitting right there. And you can put the power play built on top of that. You don't have this ridiculous thing where the superpowers run everything and then there's the power play and you don't know where you stand. Because as everyone's pointed out so far in the chat here, a lot of people don't care about power play, and really that's how it should be for members of the Pilots Federation, because you care about yourself and your mates. That's what the Pilots Federation is.
Kind of
power
outside
play
of that
shouldn't matter to you, and the only reason it does is because they've put these dangled shiny toys in front of them so that people can have something at the end of it.
I mean,
that I can actually understand, though. I can understand the power play factions wanting to do that because they want to pull Pilots Federation members in to do their jobs. Yeah, exactly.
The jobs. But perhaps they could give you another reason for trying to get involved. What always kind of amazes me, and I think you're right in pointing out all the law that's there behind Elite, is not just the law, but the amount of assets that are in the game, and they're just not used. I mean, we've got the Thargoid bases, we've got the Guardian ruins, and they're only used for a couple of little things, really.
Repeatedly, repeatedly used.
It's all repeatedly used for a couple of things.
That
could all be just tied
as an artist myself, that annoyed me because I was thinking that the poor guys that created these things and the love that they put into the assets there.
Yeah, they're fantastic assets.
The sound effects, gorgeous stuff, but they've almost insulted it with the gameplay mechanic by. You get to the point where you go, oh, I have to drive around this place again, and I feel for the artists because they're like, I put a lot of work in that so that people would enjoy it, not get bored by it driving round and round, you know.
This is the thing, isn't it? I mean, a lot of games would kill to have those type of assets, and that's those type of locations.
Gorgeous.
And design some great gameplay around it. Surely, I'm no coder. I don't know how much work goes into creating those sort of locations and making them function in the way they function. I mean, there's a whole mechanic in those Thargoid bases, wasn't there? And it was sort of one-shot use, and it's done. I mean, on the other hand, we don't want something quite as repetitive as what's been going on with the Thargoid bases. But at the same time, making something as great as that Thargoid map, and only having it as a one-shot use, it just kind of seems.
Yeah, it's. I love the visual feel of Elite. I never get tired of that, and the sound effects perfect. The work on the sound in the game, unparalleled. And so, as you say, as you're quite right, there's all of these beautiful assets in the game, and a lot of them are woefully underused. And if you want my suspicion, it's because there's too much emphasis in the back rooms here put on logistics and protocols and mechanisms, and we need to tweak this, tweak that, how about this, what about that, let's revisit this and tinker with that again. Just slap them on the wrist, leave it alone. It wasn't that bad before.
It kind of almost sounds like it sounds almost like you're describing a game made by a bunch of engineers rather than a bunch of...
That's incredibly accurate. I think that is incredibly accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say that explains a lot, actually.
I mean, when you talk to the devs who from Frontier about the game, a lot of them all talk about how they prefer flying smaller ships, or they prefer doing, I just dip in for a couple of hours, I do a bit of this, a bit of that, and that's it really, and that's great. It's like, okay, I understand. You haven't had time to burn out yet. You have it because it's okay. It's like obviously they spend all day making a game. You're not necessarily going to want to go and play it. Build homes never finished, all that kind of stuff, and it makes you kind of think maybe they should play a little bit more of it. And I think that's something the community team get a little bit more of, because they get to see and interact with the community, especially Will and Ed. They get involved and they play the game a bit more. It's
something Cornelius said over a year ago in one of his videos. He actually said something about he wanted to force the devs to actually, how is this good gameplay? He says, I want the devs to fly out for an hour to find this location and tell me that this is exciting gameplay. And you think, yeah, he's bang on right. They just don't do it. How could all of this grind stuff that they add in, they've obviously just worked it out as numbers at the bottom of a sheet, and they've not thought how it affects people playing it. To have to do this over and over.
Man.
Chris, we're in chat saying people said chefs never eat their own dishes. Now, my mother was a chef, and actually she would, because she knew it was good. That's the difference. I think that could be a...
Never trust a thin chef.
Oh,
there is that.
That sounds about right.
Hey, that means I'm a master chef.
Oh yeah.
Bit different than Oxy.
Oh yeah. Oh come on.
I'm not letting you have it. No, I'm not letting you have that.
Spidey in my chat just mentioned about, we spoke about this before in previous live streams, about having a gold rush. Do you think tying gold rushes into power play would be a good idea? Maybe a faction suddenly announce it, not something too dissimilar to a community gold, perhaps, but for
actually,
a power.
Now you mentioned it, yeah, that's kind of like a flip side of what I was saying earlier about Galnet should be the Pilots Federation's personal organ, as it were, because that's how I would have handled the bonus weekend that they had just recently. And then again, the justification it prompted me to write a post on the forum, and I don't start threads on the forum lightly, because I don't have much time for starting threads on the forum these days. But their justification for that bonus weekend being a tax break across the galaxy, I mean, what? The scale of the galaxy, the number of economies in there, half of them being independent, and these three superpowers get together and nod together. Bearing in mind they never agree about anything, the superpowers. They all get together and nod and go, yes, let's have a tax break for a week. What a marvelous idea to give everybody extra profits. You think, what? How is that a thing? How is that even workable? And then to top it off, they have the engineers, who are by definition, this is how they were pitched to us when they launched engineers, mavericks, secretive mavericks who don't get involved with people. You have to find them, you have to earn their trust, you have to work with them. But suddenly, according to this Galnet article, all of the engineers seem to have a union rep who does press releases and says, yes, all the engineers have agreed that they'll have a discount for this weekend. And you think, well, these are like people, no one knows who half of them are because they're hidden under rocks, So yeah, what I would have done, I would have used Galnet as a proper Pilots Federation organ, and had it to be like insider trading. You've got a special deal because they've found a loophole or something. Galnet have got a hold of a bit of intel, and it's only good for 3 or 4 days. So Pilots Federation members can use it and exploit it now, before it's discovered or its use runs out. That's how I would spin a double experience thing. And your onboard computer would every system you went into, it would automatically track the best deals. So from a player's perspective, you wouldn't notice anything different. You'd just be getting better deals. But the justification would be your onboard computer is finding you those deals in every system because of this insider dealing thing. And the engineers would know that because the Pilots Federation is their best customers. And because they know that Pilots Federation commanders would have more money that week, they'd entice them in with a discount. And that all makes perfect logical sense from a lore base in the game. And the fact that they had this tax break thing, it got under my skin, it really did. But extending it to power play, it's the same mechanic. You could use Galnet and say, well, you know, this power is getting a bit dodgy, so here, Pilots Federation guys, we'll offer you, because we're the Pilots Federation, a bit more cash to do jobs for these people right now, because we want to destabilize or put the balance right in our favor, because we're the Pilots Federation. And nobody in the powers, the main powers, are going to diss the Pilots Federation because they do all the dirty jobs for them. Well, so they tolerate the fact. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they tolerate the fact that the Pilots Federation have an agenda because they can't stop them, basically. That's the point. And they need them to do all their dirty jobs. And that's all within the game lore that Frontier isn't using.
Yeah.
You know, I mean...
Again, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's just everything you've described is pretty much already in the game. It's just a case of using it.
Exactly. They
using it in the right way.
Change anything.
It's not like they have to create
explain it differently.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same going back to the whole Thargoid things as well with the bases. I'd love to see more missions from the mission board offered to head out to those places. It'd be nice to see missions on the mission board sending you to megaships.
Yeah, that would be.
You know, the megaships, you've got to do the various different tasks for you can do around them.
I mean, you could even, because megaships move, you can put them in a location and have a Pilots Federation. Well, in fact, the Pilots Federation has got megaships we've seen. They magically appear out of nowhere when a station's in danger that you can dock at, because they were Pilots Federation megaships that they've got access to.
I didn't actually realise that.
Yeah, that's the rescue ships. They're all, and you could sort of temporarily make one of them your base, like the squadrons thing coming up. You could make one of them your temporary base for a while as Pilots Federation and do missions out of that are Pilots Federation sanctioned missions in a specific area because they want something done in that area. And that's the other thing that annoyed me about the rate of repair of the stations, which again, I mean, personally, I don't see what that's got to do with the Pilots Federation. You know, we're not brickies, a bunch of navies going out repairing. It's not our job, you know. But if they wanted to, if they really wanted our help, the Pilots Federation megaships that were there taking people off the burning stations, you could park them somewhere and pilots could dump a load of cargo off at the megaship so that you didn't have to fly out to the station and dump this cargo off dump it on the megaship, and then the megaship could jump out every few days to the station with a full load of stuff. Doesn't that make more sense logistically?
It does. I'm kind of glad you brought up the whole deal about the damaged stations. We talked about it a bit last week on the previous live streams, and afterwards someone got a little bit annoyed with the way we were talking about not enough people getting involved in repairing them, because obviously there's a couple of groups out there that are repairing them. There's the whole collective of Operation Ida and Cannon, and the point we were making wasn't so much that there's not the groups and the other people out there actually doing these things, and they're doing a really good job. I mean, they got Obsidian Orbital back online, them and
they did.
The Winged Hussars, and I think Hutton was probably involved in that as well, a bunch of other people. And what was the first station that went offline? Wasn't it the Oracle? They got that back online.
Oracle
well.
and Titan's Daughter, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, people have done a fantastic job. It's not a case that there's absolutely no one doing these things. There are people doing it, and I think the people doing that sort of thing enjoy that sort of gameplay. But the point that we were making is that for the average sort of player, the player who doesn't necessarily ship lots of things around, there's no incentive for them to go out to these mega ships, not to the mega ships rather, but to the damage stations. Give them a reason. Whether that's a law reason or a financial reason.
The community got together to do it themselves because they wanted to. A small group within the community, and it shouldn't. No offense, but it shouldn't be left to the community to decide things like that all the time. Yeah, blaze your own trail. It's a marvelous thing to have on paper, but you shouldn't you shouldn't take the loyalty of your players for granted that they're going to do that, because it looks like you're being complacent or dismissive or indifferent.
Some people would even classify that as lazy.
Yeah, but they don't want to waste your time.
That would be that. That'll be another. Yeah, so they do. Like Obsidian says, they need to put incentives in, because I mean, like you said, Dave, we're a bunch of mercenaries. That's our job. We're a bunch of mercenaries, the best mercenaries in the galaxy. That's what the Pilots Federation are. Whether we're being mercenaries with trade or with combat or whatever, that's what we are. And you have to buy us, basically, if you want us to do something for you.
Yeah, I mean, every hour that you play the game, and I get roasted whenever I say this, but credits per hour is quite important to people when they play the game. Not to everybody. Make that really clear, not to everybody, because I say that and I was like, well, I'm an explorer and I've been playing for this long and I've only got 30 million credits. That's cool. That's what you want to do as part of it. But then again, exploration, just remember for a minute, that's been put on the back burner and pushed even further back with regards to the open feedback. So don't think that you're getting your best experience there either. But yeah, for a lot of people, it's credits per hour, and I kind of agree, because it's your really key measure of progress once you have that perfectly engineered ship that you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we literally don't have anything else to measure it by. There's no levels or skills or anything that you can accumulate. There's not even sort of like shiny badges and achievements and special costume unlocks for clearing systems or something. Who knows? Whatever. So yeah, really, it's down to cash. How much cash you've got. That's the bottom line. How people are. The mindset that people have got into for thinking what progress is very heavily credit based. That's for sure.
It's the only thing.
Is with the lead, it does mean different things to different people, and I think I've heard developers say that more than once. I think the words they use is basically elite is everything to everyone. But it's very hard to develop a game with that sort of approach, I would have thought.
It is very, very.
Yeah,
that's what.
How do you reconcile all of the different play styles that comes with something like that?
Exactly. I mean,
how is that? That is not a small job.
When you mentioned credits, to me, credits are a good thing to have as many as possible. I often see the argument made, well, just how many do you need? Surely once you've got 1 billion credits, that's enough. That gets you a ship or 2 billion or whatever. But it's not always necessarily so much what you can do with the credits. It's just, as you said, it's a measurement of your progress. Just keep building them up.
It's one of Yamix's favourite dead horses to beat, is that one. The fact that he regards credits as a game enabler. He says the games
Exactly.
they want you to blaze your own trail, but you can't do that unless you've got the credits. And they're stopping you getting the credits, so it's putting people off from blazing their own trail. Whereas if you gave people the chance to make more credits than they know what to do with, then people go out and start taking risks and enjoying themselves and saying, what happens if I do this? I've never done this before. I'm not that bothered about losing a ship now because I've got the money. So I'll go and look at that. I'll go and do that. I'll do something that I wouldn't normally have done. That's what he means. It's an enabler, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
So you kind of feel
They back themselves into the corner where the only measure you've got is credits. They have to hold back on it because that's the only measure they've got, and so it's a catch-22 that they've got themselves in there.
Right, and then you still have to be careful with giving players too much too fast, because something that I see in the Galactic Academy all the time is people who are brand new to the game and have just abused whatever credit fountain is around, and they're calling Elite a quote-unquote crap game because they bought an Anaconda and got killed by an NPC Viper because they have no idea how to fly the thing. Yeah. And so there is, I think, a certain measure of caution that needs to be taken with some of that stuff, because if you skip too much too fast, you simply won't have the know-how and the skills to make the most out of what you're getting. And
Actually,
that is, I'm not really sure how to address that problem either, because
yeah,
A storyline.
a toughie.
A storyline that
Well,
guide. Here we go.
yeah,
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Yeah.
A storyline
I
that
think
guides you
proper
through the
tutorials
basics.
would,
You know,
like proper tutorials would go a long way towards alleviating some of
They
it
would.
too. But I don't know how much, because some of the stuff that they need to learn can be quite advanced, actually. Yeah, it's difficult to do that with a tutorial.
That's what I say. You want like a campaign almost, like within the game. It can maintain, you know, still in the same active game galaxy that we've got now, but it's just a series of missions that follow on, chain missions that follow on. You go through them and you learn different aspects of the game from it, so that you don't have a bam, here you go engineer. What?
Yeah, that's what I meant about the Pilots Federation offering missions being mission brokers. You have in effect a permanent friendly face that's chucking you missions from the Pilots Federation. It's an NPC you can get attached to, because we're desperately missing that in this game. There are a few notable NPCs, but they're a bit cookie cutter. There's nothing to emotionally bond you to any of these NPCs. You know, you don't care about any of them. They're just a different face. But if you had your union rep, as it were, with the Pilots Federation, your caseworker, who's sort of like giving you these gigs as you go along, you can feel, you know, a sort of attachment for it, and you get a progression of where to go, because it's what he reckons you're up for handling, and you can opt to take more dangerous things, but he'll say, "You sure you want to take that one? You know, it's a bit above your pay grade," and it's you can set that up, and it would be a person that you could relate to.
Well, surely, really, that's what power play could be about, couldn't it?
It should be. It should be.
With all representatives from each power in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why, especially if you look at people like Machine and Ascorbius and yourself, Turgeon, who produce story-based videos, and you know they're engaging. They have characters that you kind of want to know what happens next with. Whether they they be Ascorbius and his basking, you know, you and your troubles with AI, or Machine getting stranded on the the Enigma expedition. It's all these things where you can really relate. Like you think, oh my god, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like, oh, what's going to happen next? Like, or you watch it and it's like, that is totally bizarre. Like, that is daft. I love it. But then on the flip side, you've got a complete absence of that in the game, and even like loads of games have cutscenes. Why can't we have cutscenes? You complete a mission, you come in, you dock, you get given a message. Imagine that from
Well,
we
kind of did have a cutscene when the Thargoids first started hyperdicting people.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved that little Palin video that we were treated to.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good.
That was brilliant. That's what you want to see in these games, because it felt in that video that the commander that Palin was talking to, the Ramtar one, yeah. The commander that Ramtar was talking to, you felt that they had some sort of relationship. They talked to each other before, they knew each other. That's what you'd expect a commander who talks to one of these reclusive bods to be like, that kind of relationship. And it's great in a little cutscene video like that, but we don't have any of that in the game. You don't have that feels. No feels.
Need the feels, man.
Yeah.
We do. We need plenty of feels.
And so there's plenty of space for it to have your leaders of power play factions coming in there, and the whole rank up system is I can be an admiral, and obviously this is separate from power play, but I can be an admiral and I can be a king at the same time. No one said well done. I've been sent a three line text message saying, "Hey, welcome to the King Club." Come on.
But that's because they're honorifics. Like if you have an actor who plays Einstein in a film, and he goes over to Cambridge and says, "Yes, well, thank you for playing Einstein in such a wonderful way in this film. Here, have the honorific title of Professor." And you go, oh, thanks very much. No one's going to expect you to actually do a lecture on, you know, relativity because you've got the title professor. It's just an honorific because you're an actor playing him in a film. And that's kind of what these imperial and federal ranks are. No one's going to expect you to actually be an admiral of a fleet. It's just like, there you go, have a badge. Oh, thank you very much. You know, that's what it comes down to.
Kind of feel that Frontier have moved away from that idea. It's one of the reasons we haven't got Alliance ranks, and they're not introducing them, even though they're introducing Alliance ships.
Yeah,
I think part of that might actually be lore-based, though, because I'm not sure that the Alliance military actually exists.
No, it would be like having some sort of rank title conferred on you by the EU. God knows what it would actually be, you know, or whether you'd want it. You know. So yeah, it's not quite the same mechanic, that one. But I was saying, it reminds me, they talk about credits and things, it reminds me of something I encountered in my very early days in when I played City Heroes, because their first winter event that they put into the game, which was great, they had giant snowmen invading the city and all the heroes had to gather together and beat the crap out of them and all. But they hadn't thought it through, because these things gave a lot of experience, and so what you could end up with is a new character that you created during the winter event, and you could level him up to quite high just by getting involved in these winter things and fighting the guys out. And what it meant in game terms was that you out-leveled your NPC contacts. So you had a character that was broken essentially after that, because they couldn't get any actual missions in the game, because the contacts went one from another, you know. So you talk to one guy first, and then when you do his missions, he puts you in touch with another guy, and then another guy. So, and I get the same kind of feel with the whole credits question here in Elite, that it's like they're saying about just jumping in and getting too many credits to start with. Oxy was saying that, weren't you? That it can mess things up, and people will think, well, this game's crap, I've got all the money now. And that's the same kind of thing as you could feel in City Heroes at the start, because you've missed the story because you just leveled up fighting these snowmen. And that was kind of half your fault and half the developer's fault, because they should have anticipated that. And it's a similar thing here, because the credits being the only measure you've got, people can just feel that that's it. I've got all the money now, I'm going to do something else. Yeah. So
someone mentioned in chat just here about whether Elite could benefit from oh, excuse me, my throat. Dear, I need to take a drink in a minute. Sorry about that.
Friday night, have a drink.
From, yeah, if you could benefit from 4X elements. So for 4X elements from strategy games, expand, explore, and whatever the other X's
I
are.
think.
I can't remember. You know the sort of games I make.
Yeah, if you layer into power play, like certainly there's some things that Frontier could learn from Stardock, for example, with Galactic Civilizations. Yeah, you know, they've done.
Power play kind of fits right into that idea, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's definitely scope for it, and I think that's the trick they're missing.
Exploit and exterminate. Explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. Thank you.
But yeah, definitely a trick that is being missed. I think there's scope for it as well, where, you know, you could potentially, if there's just, I don't know, if your actions felt like they had more impact, because that's something we've found. I know me and Oxy have probably found doing the BGS for our player group, is that we actually feel like we have an impact now with everything that we do, not just the credits that we earn, but, you know, I'm taking missions that I wouldn't normally take if I was looking for credits. I'd be like, oh, it's below me. But what I'm looking for is the influence and the reputation and the effects it's going to have on the next system we want to expand into. And it'd be good if the power play had that kind of thing to it, where it had the same drive and people might want to do the same thing there.
You won't get any argument from me on that one. Not at all. There is some strategy elements to it, because with power play you have to calculate, you know, CC income and upkeep, and, you know, are the factions in these systems, are they friendly? You know, does it take more CC capital from us to maintain these systems because, you know, we're a Federation-aligned power, but that's a dictatorship that's in control of these systems. Well, that doesn't necessarily play very nice with, Federation-based powers, so they have to take that kind of thing into account. And in some cases, they'll even attempt to flip control of those systems so they can take them, and it'll be more friendly to their power. That kind of thing, like, it does exist, it does happen, but it's a shame that it's not more common.
Well, I mean, that's what I was meaning about the if you introduced a breakaway pilots federation, it was people that for whatever reason didn't like the way the pilots federation was doing things, then you've got an automatic tension because the power play crew, the power players, the figureheads of these various organizations would know that the pilots federation like to keep the status quo, but they're always looking for an edge themselves, so they turn to the breakaway group to do the jobs that they know the pilots federation wouldn't do if it meant one power getting a bigger foothold. And then you've got that tension between the two groups, the two player groups, the one that wants to change something and actually make one power stand out in an area, and the pilots federation that's always trying to keep things much as they are as a balance to maximize profits. And that's all the dynamic you need. That's enough tension. The players would provide that tension if you give them the two pilots federation organizations to work for. That's literally all you need.
That's what Frontier are going for with power play, though, with the idea of trying to potentially force it into open only.
I think that's what they think they're doing. But it's not going to work because the system that they put in place at the outset is fundamentally flawed, and they have this nasty habit of never actually going back and admitting or realizing sometimes that a system was that badly flawed, or maybe they just believe it isn't. But from my perspective, at least, it would be much easier, neater, more player friendly to have two player factions that you can choose to work with or not. And it wouldn't matter for people who didn't do PvP, because if you're a Pilots Federation PvEer, it wouldn't matter what's happening in these anarchy systems where the breakaway group are, because you probably wouldn't be going there all the time. You'd be doing jobs for the Pilots Federation in other systems. That's where your mission giver is giving you stuff, And for the other side, the anarchy group, they're the kind of mindset of people where they don't care, they'll do what they want anyway. So it would work. The players would create their own dynamic. We're not being given the chance.
Oh no, it's not our game, is it? We just play it.
No, it's not.
And often this is one of these things I think Frontier have they make some mistakes on, which is they ask the community for too much feedback sometimes, and that's going to sound probably daft to some people, but because if you ask for the feedback and then you completely ignore it, people think you're a mug. Like, how many times have I asked people for advice on builds and ships and stuff like that, and then I've completely ignored them? I asked for the feedback though, all the time. Yeah, I've only just armoured my power plant this week, despite having had all kinds of power problems. Yeah, exactly. After everyone telling me to do it, and I've finally done it now, and everyone's like, about time too. If I'd done it straight away, then I would have done it, but I've just listened to everyone and not made my mind.
There's no shame in listening to people that have put the time in to know what's behind these things. They've become experts on something because they wanted to. The rest of us sort of like chip away at things, and you say, well, what should I do with this? And an expert, well, there are as many opinions as there are experts out there, but the point is they're more informed opinions than the ones that we ourselves might have, and so you have to investigate them yourself and then make a judgment call. But you can't make a judgment call if you don't actually listen to the opinions that people are giving you. And I think one of Frontier's biggest problems with that has to be this crime and punishment system. so many people said tying crimes to ships is a stupid idea, what the hell do you think you're doing? And Frontier said, well, people seem to like the idea of tying crimes to ships, let's go with that then.
What people?
Did you actually read these? It's astonished me that. Yeah.
Well, there's two different ways of kind of looking at that. On the one hand, Frontier genuinely looking for feedback and opinions, or are they, on the other hand, looking for confirmation of what they already want to do?
That is an excellent.
I
point.
think
That
it's
really
it's
is.
confirmation. I honestly, I'm gonna give an opinion, a solid no holds barred opinion. It's confirmation. They've already made their minds up. They've got their plans. They're doing it, and they'll change their minds and not tell us. They'll just be like, "Oh yeah, we just decided not to do it this time." Well, actually, it was never a plan at all. It's just, they want to give you that, feel that you had an opinion sometimes.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
that's
exactly it. They honestly believe that they're open to people's opinions, though. But because, as you say, they've got this fixed notion beforehand, this preconception about an idea that they think is better, it's going to bias everything they look at. And even if an opinion has value, they'll look at it and go, yeah, that's got value, but it doesn't quite fit in with, because they're already biased in favour of what they've pre-decided. And, yeah.
To be fair, though, it's not that they never listen. They do.
Well, they do.
Sometimes
They
try
do
and make
listen.
sense things.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Apparently
been
the whole
quite a
ship idea
few
was-
notable cases. Yeah.
Wasn't the bounty on the ships an idea that come from the community? I seem to remember Standro saying they'd seen that comment on the forums and they kind of went with it.
Shouldn't have done. If you ask if you ask a kid what they want for dinner every single night, they're gonna say jelly and ice cream. Doesn't mean it's good for them. And that's always think, ask gamers what they want. Well, I want to earn 500 million credits an hour. Okay, that's not gonna be good for your gameplay though, because you have to have, that's too much. Well, but it's what I want.
Supercruise come from, isn't it? I don't know if you guys are aware.
Yeah,
of
that is true.
It was meant to be point-to-point travel, wasn't it? And it was the players that wanted Supercruise. Frontier wanted a point-to-point travel.
Yeah,
And everyone was, well, that's gonna shrink space down. We want to fill spaces big. So Frontier come up with Supercruise.
That was in the days of the Kickstarter sort of like development chat group of things, wasn't it?
2013, before the game was
and
released, well, it was still being designed.
They did listen. They listened a lot back then. They just seem to listen ever less. That's what it feels like. That may not be true, but that's what it feels like from this end of playing the game. They're listening ever less when people offer alternate opinions. And I think they've just decided to go so far down one particular road that they actually now can't go back and change their minds. And that's not an unreasonable comment to make, or an unprecedented one, because that is what they themselves admitted when it came to the offline mode that we were promised in Kickstarter and never got, because they eventually decided, because they worked on the multiplayer mechanic, because that was their primary focus, and as it should be, it's an online game. And then when they came to look at the offline mode that they'd promised, they found that they then couldn't integrate it into the background simulation heavy setup that they had in mind. So they had to admit, well, it would take too much work for us now to make this alternate offline mode, so you can't have it, because they'd already decided to go down the one path. And fair enough, it was a path that, and I can understand the judgment why they did that and their reasons for doing it, but it shows a mindset that they're prepared to go down a path without considering something that may come back to bite them later, and they keep making that mistake.
Yeah, Tuco So just made a kind of point similar to that, and I think he was coming at it from a slightly different angle, but he was saying that unfortunately we never really know what the limitations are with the code. And yeah, if they're making decisions that are kind of taking them down one path and later on realizing perhaps they could have gone another way.
Yeah, and the Cobra engine's very flexible, as I understand it, but I say I'm not remotely a programmer or coder. I have no knowledge of code, so I don't know. I haven't got a clue. That's a good point. We don't know what their mechanical limitations are.
Well,
they can make dinosaurs, can't it?
Well, I wonder if it's not a Cobra engine limitation, but a mechanical limitation because of the way they've coded the game in particular. Because I do see, technical limitations as being a reason that they can't do X, Y, or Z on a fairly regular basis. So I wonder if maybe it's something in the game itself, not necessarily the engine, that is the limiting factor for some of this stuff.
It might well be early decisions. It could be anything. I guess it's something we're never really going to know, unfortunately.
And it's also something that can't be turned back on either, as well. Once certain things are implemented in the game, you can't then go back on them because they get really well adopted. So say, for example, now if they were to turn around and say, yeah, actually we're going to remove engineering from the game because people don't like how much RNG there is in it. Could you imagine the uproar?
Yeah.
Or added when they add the commodities back in eventually.
Mm.
Because let's not
that's
forget,
gonna
you know,
happen.
we used to have commodities for engineering as well, which almost made
We
sense.
did. Well, like I say, again, that's another one that I thought was badly implemented from the start. And the system that I would put in its place would cause a lot of upset from people because it would essentially require reworking from the ground up. And yeah, they've gone too far down a road to go back on it now. So there's quite a lot of that in the game.
I remember a conversation on one of the Q&A panels at LaveCon. I don't think it was last year. It may have been the year before. It was with Michael Brooks was still there anyway. And someone asked the question about players having to choose between either the Alliance, the Federation, or the Empire in terms of gaining rank. And the point, I'm pretty sure it was Michael Brooks, the point he made is it's kind of late for that at the point now, because what do you do with the people that have got ranks in both?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, that's one of the aspects that I've never actually had any objection to, because you could do that in previous elites. But it's a case of, like I say, it's an honorific title. They're just sort of, you're not a real baron. If you actually turned up to some fancy imperial function and said, "Hello, everybody, I'm a baron," they'd go, "Oh God, it's that bloody commoner from the Pilots Federation," and they'd go, "Yes, it's so pleased to meet you," and they'd shake your hand because you remember the Pilots Federation. But the moment you're back, said, "Oh, what a ghastly little man," you know. So they're not.
I love the voices.
So you can hold the title of baron and admiral, but they don't actually count. So I don't have a problem with players holding these.
Well, the point was was really backing up the point that
but yeah,
some decisions lock you down a certain route, and to change them, you're going to impact a lot of players.
And there's one thing that you can't really do in games, or at least you can't do very often, it's take things away from players that you've given them.
Exactly,
That never makes you popular.
Such as, you know, say Guardian FSD boosters, just throwing an example at. I'm not remotely.
I knew that was coming.
Not remotely. But you know that's going to be fixed in 3.1, and we've only got 20 days to wait for that to happen.
They should be back.
Yeah.
Which
Get collecting your blueprints if you haven't got them already.
Yeah, I was going to say, I never did any of the Guardian blueprint correct. Oh my gosh, English is hard. Collecting. There we go.
it was worth
Never
it
did
was
any of it.
it was worth doing when it was broken. Sorry, broken. Wasn't working as intended.
Did you miss out on the glitch that was there at the time, where you could get all the blueprints from the regular obelisks?
I milked that. I spent hours there because
As
as soon as they went, "Hi guys, there's been a bit of a mistake here, and this is what's happening," I'm like, "I'm going there now." I didn't even need to read to the bit where they said they were going to fix it. I was like, well, "I'm going there now. They haven't fixed it yet."
Yeah.
I'm taking Anaconda with 6 SRVs in. Off I go.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. That was I would have done that as well, except none of my ships were in any. Both of my accounts were like halfway across the galaxy at the time, so I was in no position
You
to go
missed
and do
out.
it. But I would have, yeah.
Yeah.
But see that raises an interesting question, and that's another horse that Yamix beats a lot, isn't it? The fact that why people feel the need, why should they feel the need to take advantage of these things in such a breakneck speed when something is found that gives you more than the game normally gives you? It shows you that something's disproportionate. Otherwise, people wouldn't rush for it when there's a little bit more.
The same way.
I
You're
don't
always going to
know.
get a percentage of people that want to jump on these sort of things, but
Yeah, it
the
always
sheer
is.
volume.
I just think as humans go, we tend to gravitate towards the easiest option, if there is one. You know, path of least resistance.
Least resistance, yeah.
And you know, if you get a chance to make a few million credits, and you're going to fill your pockets, or if you're going to get like, hang on, for me, for example, I'm like, wait, why am I going to wait until this is fixed before I go and I do this? Because I want the Guardian weapons anyway. Because I was in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get them and I'm going to take on a Thargoid solo and it's going to be so super easy. No, it wasn't, but it was. I had to have them. I had to have them then rather than spend the ridiculous amount of time knowing what the alternative was going to be. It was just like, no, I'm just not doing. I can't do that.
So yeah, when it comes to people rushing off and doing their own thing, it's just reminded me of something that Buckminster Fuller once said, and that's along the lines of, if you want people to go across a river, you can tell them to sort of swim. You know, look, there's a shallow bit, you swim, you go and swim, everybody swim across the river. Or you can just build a bridge and not say anything, and the people will go across the bridge themselves because it's there, because it's the easiest way of doing it. You don't have to tell people to go across the bridge, they'll just do it.
Well, that's game design, isn't it?
It is, it should be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would have thought, I wonder sometimes if that's kind of what Frontier were getting at with a lot of these things that are out there to be discovered, that people only ever come across a couple of times a year. They're out there to be found, and eventually people find them, but unfortunately finding them's not easy, is it?
Someone mentioned in my chat Raxxla. They mentioned that.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up, actually.
And, you know, everyone's saying, oh, if it's been in the game since the beginning, okay, so that means it's not on a planet's surface. You know, because it can't be. Or it is on a planet's surface, and it's always been on a planet's surface, they just didn't want us to land on them, and never have had this ready for ages. Or, you know, all this kind of stupid stuff comes into it. And also, it's right under our noses. Okay, I'm pretty sure if people can find really random stuff, like the first Thargoid base, that was found. You know, first mega ships being found.
Because there were with like the Thargoid ground bases and stuff like that. It's because there were clues out there for it. There is nothing for Raxxla, not a thing, and that's it. Like the only passages that really exist for it is in the novella The Dark Wheel, and that's it. And even that is incredibly vague.
It is, yeah. It's beautifully vague. You could build several TV series out of how vague that is, and still not give anything away.
Yeah.
What do you guys think if come a year from now or 2 years from now, whatever it happens, and Frontier finally release atmospheric worlds, and Raxxla turns out to be an atmospheric world?
Well, I'm a big fan of calling people dicks for being dicks, and I would call them dicks.
Yeah, that is a dick move.
The argument it's been in the game since the start would be true, but you wouldn't win any friends.
You just wouldn't have been able to do anything with it.
Well, you know, I reckon it's probably on the moon.
Well, we can sit here and
Earth was in the game, you know. Earth was in the game from the start, and you couldn't land on that. No one complained there. So, no, you're not going to win your friends that way.
Oh my god. Oh, if that happens, I'm gonna be so mad.
I kind of want it to happen now. A little bit of me does, because, and you know, as long as obviously live streams his reaction, I've got to make sure he doesn't read the news or find anything about it and be like, wait, right, Oxy, start streaming, read this link, and then just watch him go nuts.
No, I'll see it, and there will be a rage video if that happens. If that's what happens, there will be a rage video. I will not be a happy camper.
Giving Frontier warning ahead of time now. I've got a guy in the chat, Zorin, is actually asking, so obviously not everyone knows about that. Who would be a good person to explain that? Turgeon, perhaps?
Oh, what's that? You cut out. You cut out for a minute, so we missed you.
Out there.
So someone was asking about what is Raxxla. So obviously not everyone's aware of what Raxxla is.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one to explain, but Turgeon can probably do the best job out of it.
Yes, under the bus. Go on.
Go on, Turgeon.
Yeah. Well,
you joined in on this.
It's kind of a bit like sort of Elite's Area 51 in a way. You know, it's a legendary thing, and the stories that it first appears in the Dark Wheel, it never actually tells you what kind of legendary thing it is, whether it's a place or a cult. It's probably not a person, but it seems to be hinted at that it has a geographical location. But it's definitely the sort of It's the secret plot device where all the super secrets of all secrets live, is what it is. I think is it kind of hinted that there's a gateway of some sort there, but
I've heard
there's
Yeah.
really there's
no one
there's
knows
not
what kind
enough.
of gateway it is.
I mean,
Yeah,
The
there's
gateway to
not
other
enough to
galaxy.
get anything solid to get your teeth into, because it's a literary plot device that was never developed, and that's fine. You know, there's infinite potential there, but it has kind of become the Area 51 of elites.
Now, supposedly, as I understand it, it's supposed to be some kind of gateway to another. What do I want to call it? Galaxy, dimension, universe, something like that, where the laws of physics may not necessarily be the same as what we have here, and some of the technology is supposed to be like absolutely incredible and ridiculous, etc., etc. This is as I understand it. God, where was that in the Dark Wheel?
I mean,
I was reading.
Yeah,
I
about
googled
that?
it was.
it.
Yeah, it was allegedly a legendary planet, and it was mentioned in the Dark Wheel, which was the novella that came with the
Original Elite, wasn't it?
game in '84. Yeah.
Just as saying it's a gateway to Jurassic Park.
It's, I'm guessing it was inspired. Robert Holzlucker wrote it. It was probably inspired by the founder Asimov's Foundation stories, because in the Foundation stories there's this lost technology of human history, because it's set up that human society, without giving too many spoilers away, old Asimov story, human society is heading for a collapse, and mathematicians predict what's going to happen, and they put all of the best people together in a separate place out of the way that's going to escape the Dark Age across the galaxy. And so when the Dark Age happens, all the people have this legend about this Foundation world, and they never find it because it was designed not to be found by people in the Dark Age world, you see. So, and I think he's probably kind of taking the inspiration for Raxxla from that. But again,
Yeah, makes
they
sense.
never actually said
Kind of
anything
fits.
about it.
We've actually had Steve Shaw over on my chat has said, on Raxxla there is an alien construct with access to all of the galaxies, a ghost world, the myth, the legend. Apparently that's the line. It's a direct quote from the book. So yeah, vague. I had it down as
Very
being
vague.
similar to. I don't know if anyone remembers the Iconians from the Star Trek universe.
Oh yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it might be, but it's always this. I guess there are only so many original ideas out in the world. Not saying it's a copy, but there are only so many original ideas out in the world, and you start to repeat things. Advanced alien races, finding old technology, bio aliens. It's a fairly repetitive theme, but yeah.
I'm still amused by the Raxxla's Jurassic Park.
Yeah, there'd be a link from Elite directly into the other game.
Joke's on you, it goes to the Cretaceous period instead. Bamboozled!
Of course, not long to go until Jurassic World Evolution comes out.
No,
Is that,
actually, I was actually just talking with Will, trying to get an interview date set up with him, and he said that they're awfully busy because of Jurassic World right now, so he can't really commit to anything until closer to the end of the month.
Of course,
They're obviously very, very busy
they've
with
got
Jurassic World.
LaveCon this weekend, then they've got E3 as well, haven't they? And then the launch of Jurassic World Evolution at the same time, and then we've got the next update to come, 3.1. So yeah, busy time for the guys over at Frontier. Hopefully, they're using it productively.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Cautious optimism, I like to say.
But look, there's a fact. I've just found something out here that I never actually knew. I've had this book since probably since 1982. A book called The Alien World: A Complete Illustrated Guide, which is it's essentially it's a lot of art, illustrations from book jackets and LP covers at the time, that kind of thing, and it's all strung together with stories describing it and breaking the galaxy up into sectors and saying there's these creatures live here, these creatures, and it's all sort of spun from inspired by the artwork of the various artists, and that was written by a guy called Stephen Eisler, and that is actually a pen name of Robert Holstock, who wrote The Dark Wheel, and apparently Raxxla is in that book 2 years before he put it in The Dark Wheel.
Do you say where it was?
I'd have to go and get the book and look it up, because I have the
What's
book.
that book called again? Though?
It's called The Alien World: A Complete Illustrated Guide. And I recall it did have a map in it. Yeah, so he probably tells you where Raxxla is in that.
I actually feel like at one point when I was a kid, I rented that. I felt like I got that from a library as a kid. Actually, it seems it sounds
did.
really.
It's got sort of like a ship's hull with a cyclopean eye and tentacle burning through on the cover of, like, it sticks with you, an image like that. You probably remember it.
Yeah. Is
because we're all like
an Alien World a complete guide? You said.
Yeah, The Alien World: A Complete Illustrated Guide.
Because I know exactly what's going through Oxy's head and Obsidian's head. Is it? Have we just found the clues to Raxxla, which means
to get to Raxxla? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So 20,
I'll race,
20
I'll race it.
it'll be
The race is on, and
tomorrow's combat live stream is cancelled. I'm going exploring.
Yeah, I'd probably get to it first. It's in the next room somewhere in the bottom of the box.
Yeah.
I will find it online somewhere. Surely someone has it.
It's so not going to be. There's no way that someone wouldn't have. Got to remember the people that play Elite. We're talking super intelligent peeps. They will have found it. I mean, super intelligent peeps with certain exceptions. I'm here. Just got opinions. That's all.
So on the subject of power play, then going back to that, as we titled that with the live stream here, about 2 hours before we started, I don't know if you guys saw it, I put up a poll on the community section of my YouTube channel.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I was asking people to vote what they think about. Do they want it to go open? Do they want it to stay pretty much the same as it is, but solo and private have a slightly less impact than they currently do, or to have no change at all? And for anyone watching, if you want to have a look at that, you can go to my YouTube channel and click on the community section there, and you can vote.
What are the current results, actually, now that it's been out for a couple hours?
That's what I was just going to bring up. Let's have a look. So it doesn't give us specific numbers on how many votes, but it says 2k votes, so that could be anywhere from 2,000 up to 2,900. But at the moment it's standing at 55% people in favour of going over to open only.
It's not a big split.
Well, there'd be 55% for, but then the other two are still split.
Yeah, 55% in favour of going to complete open only, 22% going to solo and private having a reduced impact, and just 24% saying they wouldn't want to change at all.
Interesting.
I mean, I just think it needs a complete overhaul power play wise. Being honest, I think if it's gonna, if they want PvP, make it really styled for PvPers. At least give rewards for people that take out commanders tagged as being for other factions. Give them some incentive, because that's what's lacking very much, I would say, for a lot of people. Maybe not necessarily from PvP, but from power play, to actually stick with a faction. Give them something. I say throw.
Yeah. So do you feel the proposals that Frontier put forward are not quite enough then?
No, they're not.
Aside from the open only thing,
I just don't. I'm not even sure. Just taking what they've got and switching to open only, that would be a mistake. Taking the modules away and putting them somewhere else, great idea. I'm all for that. Tech broker maybe. But
and so some of the other proposals talk about essentially speeding up the process for how power play works, which would make it mean that powers would gain and lose areas much more faster than they do currently.
I mean, I think...
kind of like that idea, because it's so slow right now. It feels like a snail's pace.
Well, you see, this is another one of the problems of having a galaxy-wide society. I mean, if you think about it in real terms, how many billions and trillions of people are involved in all of these settlements across the galaxy, and you're expecting a handful of commanders to tip the balance of anything in like 2 or 3 days. It doesn't make any kind of logical sense. But it is a game, so you have to sacrifice some sort of you know, too much credibility and things. But it does come with making a 1-to-1 scale galaxy. It would be unreasonable to expect things to move too quickly. A little more quickly than the Thargoids crawling along the map, you know, but not like, oh, you were away 5 minutes. You know, I went to the loo. What happened? No, they've taken this system over, mate. You missed it. You don't want it quite that fast.
I do remember that somewhere, some time ago, someone on the forums actually worked out the population of the inhabited area, and I can't remember what the figure come to.
Yeah, I was trying to find that at one point because I was interested. It's one of those things where it's like if you look at the billions of people across multiple systems, it's...
Yeah, it's well into the multiple trillions. I just can't remember.
Yeah, honestly, it's definitely multiple trillions. I just... Now, who took the time to do that, though? Holy crap.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if they wrote a
point,
script and did it through some of the information that's on.
This strange double-edged sword that Frontier are always having to confront, because you get someone like Xdeath who he sees a couple of images in a video and works out where the hell the Guardian ruins are, you know, and he just, and you think, how did he, what, do you know, what planet, you know?
I was literally 5 minutes behind him. If he had been just a little slower, I'd have had it. Oh, I was so mad. I was so mad.
But there you go. You see, on the one hand, you've got that, and it obviously never occurred to them, because when we first encountered the Guardian ruins, they were broken, as we know. They were unfinished. You know, it's like a half-painted wall there. And you go, oh no, they've come too soon. So they weren't expecting people to find it that quickly. So, but the point is, in our community, that always happens. There's always someone that's going to do that. There's someone who's smart enough, or
it's always going to happen, isn't it?
Diligent enough.
Difficult
Always.
to...
That's the community we've got. Largely because so many people are intelligent, nerdy, and older people. So they're cannier. You know, you can't get anything past them. And
the only way to stop that from happening is to leave it switched off until you want it found.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got that on the one hand, that people will always find stuff, and on the other hand, they're relying on people to do just that, which is why we have so many of these third-party tools outside of the game. And they can't have their cake and eat it in that regard. They can't rely and encourage the community, like with the sonic analysis that everyone did with the Thargoid probe sounds. You can't encourage that aspect of the community and then not expect it to come and bite you when you don't want it to, and find the Guardian ruins that you weren't ready for them to find.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to be ready for both.
So someone pointed out some interesting stats. August says it's 6.6 trillion people in the galaxy, according to EDSM.
That is a lot of people.
And Tuco tells us there's 220,000 minor factions and 19,000 systems that are inhabited.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa, that is a lot.
I might have to put my plans for galactic domination on the back burner.
Actually, see, because we were talking about triangulating things, that reminded me of a system that got permit locked. When they were first teasing the Thargoid ground bases, they were able to figure out what system it was in.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm staring at the system in game now. It's HIP 22460. That's still permit locked, and there's no way to get that permit.
But there is a megaship present in the system, and a faction as well. It's is it the Pleiades Resource Enterprise?
I believe it's PRE.
Yeah. Odd.
Yeah, there's lots of odd things dotted around, I think. The more you look, the more straight.
I mean,
I was just flying through Seoul, and someone was asking me what's the red ring around one of the moons there, which is of course Titan, which is permit locked.
Yeah, I don't know how you permit lock a planet.
You can't get the permit for that.
How do you permit lock a planet? I find that a funny one.
Well, yeah, I could come up with a law-friendly explanation if you give me about 2 minutes. I'm quite sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's another one, because wasn't the moon originally down as being landable, but it was permit locked, and then it wasn't landable anymore? Is anyone? I mean, I feel like I'm imagining that or I think it was, but then it suddenly wasn't landable.
It was never landable. It is
it's
supposed to be landable, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh, I've just had
blocked it instead.
I've had Lee mention in chat saying that he remembers the moon thing. So yeah, it was down as being landable but permit locked, and then they took it away being landable in one of the updates. It was very quietly done.
Well, there was an interesting point about that. I went to Elite Meet. Must have been 2015, I think now. Yeah, Elite Meet in. I'm trying to think whether it was 2015 or 2016. Perhaps it was 2016 because it was just before the Guardian bases come. But someone actually asked Frontier on the Q&A. Had a panel there about what's happening with the moon, and one of the guys said that the artists are actually working on the surface to get it landable. But that was 2 years ago. We haven't heard any more.
They could just use
Google
Maps.
It makes me wonder if they're handcrafting the whole thing to try and get it as topographically accurate as possible.
But I kind of wonder if something went on at some point, because judging on what they were saying at the time, it sounded as though it was quite close. But obviously, like I say, that was years ago now.
Yeah, that was a good while back now. I almost wonder if maybe they wanted to add in like the models for, you know, like the lunar landers and rovers and stuff like that that are left behind, and they're having trouble getting the licensing for it.
Well, the moon's also meant to be inhabited, isn't it? If I remember. Have a look at the galaxy map.
I mean,
that won't tell us the population, will it?
Well, one of my viewers here on Twitch says the Armstrong gift shop on the moon is still under construction, and that's why you can't land there. But yeah, also saying that they need to get the moon and the Earth spot on, because when they do add atmospheric landings, everyone's going to go and find their street they live on, aren't they? And because I'm going to, that's my plan. Yeah, I intend to.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Are you kidding? I want to see. Actually, I want to see if they got my tiny town right. That's what I want to figure out. Like, if they go into that much detail, that'll be surprising.
The question would be, will it be underwater? If you've looked at the you look at the.
Yeah, exactly.
The coastlines are different, aren't they?
Yeah, I have to have a look.
They kind of are.
In the game,
a bit of climate change going on there, yeah. So a few places have disappeared. It's true.
You know, see, fortunately for me, I live right smack dab in the middle of the state, so I'm in no danger there.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I assume it wasn't glassed at some point. So it's a Halo reference. Yeah. Nuked.
Well, yeah, you could glass this place. It's not going to look any different. Oh yeah, there's wheat and cows. I think that's it.
Well, you know, Yellowstone hasn't exploded then in that future, so you're all right.
I mean, the most we have to worry about is tornadoes picking stuff up sometimes. That's about it. And even then, I live in a valley, so they just kind of go right over top.
Yeah, but you might find yourself in Oz, mightn't you? You know, you gotta be careful.
Well,
you know, because you won't be in Kansas anymore.
No, for Christ's sake.
Raxxla.
You should have seen that one coming.
Yeah.
Rax was in Kansas. Rax was in Kansas, confirmed.
Said too much.
It's like, like that. I think one thing that we should definitely talk about, if we're talking about things being an open only, is SDC's Operation Overlord.
Oh, is overloud.
Oh, overloud. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You gotta add that touch of memery to that.
Yeah, I don't speak meme. I'm a normie, so. Oh my god, he's a normie. What's your point? I'm normal.
Really?
Feels like lack of humor, man.
It's questionable either way, isn't it? So Operation Overlord, for everyone who doesn't know, was where SDC basically took it upon themselves to kind of prove a point about the open private group solo divide, and how you can perform actions just in a completely different mode from another group, and it's Mobius. That's who they decided to target, the Mobius player faction. In game, not every single Mobius player who plays in Mobius, the private group, but supports the player faction. They've gone in and they have basically managed to completely decimate them, and decimate their BGS by doing targeting attacks, basically playing it. And in the end, the guys who control the Mobius BGS have decided that they would cease activity on their BGS because they can't win. They're totally outmatched, outgunned. They don't know who's doing it. They can't fight against it. And SDC did it in open play, and to them that's the one place where Mobius players would not go. And their point being is that they could do it in open, as it's meant to be done, as BGS probably should be done, and yeah, they just did it in open, knowing that they would never encounter any resistance ever. Which is an interesting little experiment. It's a bit of a shame that they have essentially kind of ruined a lot of people's progress for no reason. Oh, just a game.
Well,
you know.
But have they not kind of proved the opposite point to what they were trying to point out?
Well, I think what they've
They've proven that.
I don't know.
Well, it's like the same point, but coming from the other angle, because it's behaving as if Mobius was open, and they were playing in a private group.
Yeah.
The only thing it highlights is that if you have different group mechanics sharing the same BGS, you've got problems, because you cannot administer all of them by the same rules. People will abuse them because people are people.
Yes. Yeah. I haven't read the thread yet, so I don't know if they were trying to prove that Solo has a lot of the claims you see is Solo has unfair effects on open, obviously because you can't compete directly against Solo, but SDC have just proved the opposite. Yeah.
I mean, what they've done is they've called open the SDC private group. Lol, hilarious. But I mean, they've used. I do think most BGS work should be, especially only if it's against other players. I'm gonna kind of, because when you're doing BGS against NPC factions, it doesn't matter. They're nothing. They don't exist. They're nobodies. It doesn't matter. But if you're doing it against a player group, I believe it should be done in open, and this is something that I've spoken with Oxy about, is that when Ployd goes to war against another player faction, which will eventually happen, we will have to perform actions against them if we continue to expand, then we're doing it in open. And that's an open, and I know I'm gonna, to be fair, I probably have to just run around whilst people attack me all the time because of the name, but it's the honourable way to do things. But at the same time, you know, it doesn't really prove their point. It doesn't prove a point, because it could be just in a different game mode. It could be in the same game mode. Doesn't mean that you're going to instance with people to be able to counteract them either.
Well, it kind of also proves that you can decimate groups that are hiding in Solo. It's irrelevant the fact whether they're hiding in Solo or a private group. You can still decimate them. Yeah,
it's a numbers game.
Yeah, there's typically what BGS ends up being, but if you were to say, you know, if everyone doing the BGS was in open play and there's someone working against them, well, then it suddenly becomes much more than numbers. It becomes interdiction, hold up. But then it becomes much more than just simple numbers. It becomes, you know, a game of skill, knowledge, you know, player interaction, all kinds of stuff starts coming into it, and I think that adds a host of emergent and enjoyable content into the thing as a whole. I mean, that's why I would like to see more interaction in open as far as BGS and stuff like that goes, because it's a lot more fun that way when there's more unknowns, and you know, you could possibly, you know, have to deal with someone from another faction that, you know, isn't just a run-of-the-mill NPC, and that presents a unique challenge to me, and I like the idea of that, but I can see where other people may not necessarily like that though too.
As I say again, that harks back to the idea that if you had two separate Pilots Federation groups within the game that had a PvP conflict possibility between the two of them, you could base your whole BGS system on that and have it so that people couldn't go to certain people from one of those two factions, the same as you have areas locked in other games that have factions. Some of them couldn't get to a system to disrupt it without a permit. You know, you can't get to certain systems that are run by player groups because that's how the Pilots Federation breakaway group and the other group have set it up. You could maybe have missions to hack things and try and get yourself a permit, but the point is, you could from a logistics point of view, you could prevent players from destabilizing other player groups by having permits, in essence, player permits for various locations. And if you had your 2 PvP groups, it should be relatively simple to implement that. But again, you know, it would mean going back to the drawing board and starting the whole thing from scratch and working it up, and they're not going to do it.
So with regards to what's going on with STC there, and I suppose the whole background simulation thing, Frontier has said, they basically assured us that power play is the only thing they're planning on moving over to open only. So kind of a redundant question because we already know what Frontier's thoughts are on it. But what would you guys' opinion be if Frontier did one day decide to make the background simulation open only? Would you think that would be a good thing, or not really?
I'm kind of torn on that one because like it would be interesting, and like me personally, I wouldn't really be against that. But at the same time, you know, there's a lot of people that may not necessarily have the time to put into, you know, dealing with other players on a regular basis, and they just want to tend to their faction and, you know, go, you know, for an hour or so a night and then call it a day. So not everyone will be, you know, keen on that whole thing, and so that's some very tricky ground to get into.
The other option, I guess, would be split into 2, perhaps. A separate background for each game mode.
And then you'd have to have it offline, wouldn't you? You'd have to bring solo would be offline.
That's precisely why they abandoned the offline mode that they promised in Kickstarter, because it would mean that they'd
have got to then manage entirely different galaxies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although having said that, I'm not quite sure what the Shadowban Galaxy BGS is. Whether it's sort of like an out-of-date version of the live server or what.
No, the Shadowban.
How many people are on it?
No, the Shadowban thing.
It is a separate server thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it basically just like they can click on open play, and it'll display that they're in open, but it just simply won't instance them with anyone else. Period, unless it's someone else that's been shadow banned.
I mean, it's worth mentioning the block mechanic doesn't work either. It won't prevent you from being instanced with people, actually.
Not entirely, no. It makes the likelihood a lot lower, but it doesn't stop it altogether.
But yeah, on the subject of power play being an open area, I think it would irritate me more than anything else, because it's just another one more brick in an ongoing road that I think goes in the wrong direction in that regard. And I do
in the inconsistencies.
Yeah. There's a lot of players who are casual players who haven't got much time to put in, and they think it's nice to have something in this huge sandbox galaxy world that has their name or their affiliation on, and they like that. They're proud of that, and it is irritating when someone comes and messes it up. It's like having, as a retired person, you're growing roses in your garden, oh, lovely roses, and then some young tosser comes and cuts the heads off the roses. It would annoy you, and it's the same kind of thing. And people can say, well, it's only a game, it doesn't matter, as much as they want. But bad manners are bad manners. It doesn't matter whether it's in a game or real life, it's still bad manners. And any system that fosters conflict, like having something purely in open would, is encouraging bad manners. It's as simple as that, and that kind of thing irritates me, because if you had the framework where you had the two rival PvP groups, you're allowed to have bad manners because that's what that structure is for. But in the system they have at the moment, there has this half-assed thing where players are not meant to attack each other, but they are. I mean, are they meant to attack each other? Are they not? What's going on? Has anybody ever said? No, nobody knows. So it's this falling between two stools thing.
Yes, it's trying to please different groups, trying to please many different people.
And as I said, that just irritates me. And putting power play only in open again, I keep banging on about sticking plasters. And this is another one of these situations where you've got like a broken leg and it's got a plaster cast on, and they think that putting a sticking plaster on a plaster cast is going to help it, and that's what it's looking like to me, power play. So this sticking plaster open only, not going to help.
Just had someone say UA bombing the fuel rats was bad manners. Yeah, so was UA bombing a target
Enigma
of a
expedition.
charity expedition. Yeah, people
Yes,
still did it,
indeed.
or or someone threatening to
Exactly.
UA bomb my stream. That I'm
Yeah.
doing tomorrow.
People will do that
That was
Self-bomb.
funny.
because people are like that. Yeah, unfortunately.
But yeah,
That's
it's
just how it is.
but that could be done in open or solo or private group. There's nothing you can do to stop that. But then you have to make a decision where you draw a line for everything, and you decide that actually, you know what, that's it. You can't win wars as part of the BGS. Conflict zones are only going to spawn in open as well now. Bounty hunting, yep, you can bounty hunt in any game mode you like, but those credits that you hand in aren't going to affect the BGS whatsoever. And power play could potentially just be the tip. I know they've said that they are only looking at power play, but it's not a long stone's throw. It's
True.
close.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you've got in chat there. Gandalf's a great thing. Isn't it irritating for people who spend months working on their faction and systems to have it ruined by someone hiding in private and solo who you can't see and can't defend against? Well, there's kind of two arguments in that. I mean, I would say half the time, with instancing being what is in the game, you can't see people in open either. I mean, Josh Hawkins and I, when we were filming something ages back, a couple of episodes of mine. We were literally halfway across the galaxy. We were the only two people in that system, and we could not instance together. So
Yeah, that
being in
seems
open doesn't mean that you're going to see someone to start with. And the other side is, yes, it is irritating. Anybody that's spent months working on their faction to have it ruined by someone for the sake of ruining it. It doesn't matter whether they're ruining it from solo or private or open. I just think it's annoying that they're ruining it, and that's what matters more to me. And a game system that encourages people to behave like that without a logical framework for people to do it within is a bad design in my book. Whether it's open or private or anything, it's a bad design, and it should have been designed from the start, power play, as a PvP mechanic. It really should have been put that way.
I mean,
Same with most of the BGS stuff.
it's probably worth me saying that I don't really PvP in Elite. Casual bit of friendly stuff with other guys,
I never do it.
But I'm not adverse to PvP in games, because as Oxy will attest to, when it comes to games like Conan Exiles, for example, one of the other games that I play, I am I am a massive butthole in it. I will.
He really is. He really is. He named himself Mr. Pickles the cat and starts ruining everyone else's bases and sticking signs outside their, broken husks that just says meow, and then he runs off.
Which is
it's a world of barbarians. I mean,
Yeah, I get it. But I love that.
I never actually do any PvP in Elite. I do a bit of CQC from time to time, because to me the only PvP that I'll do in games these days is stuff where it doesn't matter. Where it's the game ends or the round ends and everything's reset. Nobody's gained anything or won anything. You haven't got levels and points and special bits and bobs and things. It's just like you go out there, you have a bit of fun shooting your mates, and that's it. A bit of fun. But in anything where there's like levels and progression and skills and things, where there's a loss to be had involved, I don't ever do those PvP things anymore, because I used to do them years and years ago in games like WoW, and it made me into a bad person. I could feel the changes that was doing to me as a person. It fosters a certain kind of mindset, and I didn't like that, and I found myself turning into a not nice person. So I actively avoid that kind of PvP these days in any game.
Gandalf said to me, imagine in Conan if someone could be in solo mode on your server and just shred your base. Yeah, that'd be awful. I'd be mad. But at the same time, if I'm not online, or no one in my clan is online whilst they attack, it might as well be like that. And
exactly.
That's a little bit that's going to happen between. I guess.
I mean, that's the folly of the it's happening in solo argument. it's a false premise. It is, because unless you're a bot, you can't be online 24 hours a day doing stuff. And if you're a bot, you shouldn't be playing because you're breaking game rules anyway. So, you know.
So someone can't be online for 24 hours a day. Turgeon, the night before
Well,
my 24-hour stream. That's that. Challenge accepted.
24 hours a day.
But in with that, I have some BGS concerns that I have to consider as part of it. Even though I'm going to be online for 24 hours, I'm not going to be able to hand in my own bloody bounty vouchers once that I've accrued during that time, because they won't work in favour of my BGS. So I have to hang on to them, which is bizarre. But that's
Indeed. Yeah.
you know, that's BGS, not power play. It's different, but it's an odd one.
I don't know. I honestly, I didn't think it'll hurt turning them in.
But it won't improve because we've got the. This is private talk for a private time. Just like, no one needs to know our plans.
No, if we're in a war state right now,
have ears.
combat actions count. So bounty hunting counts as combat action.
But
So it will work.
Okay.
It'll just, it'll go to Hilla if you're bounty hunting in Hilla, obviously.
Secret talk for secret times.
Who cares? It's not like we posted, on a public forum. Anyways, it's not really all that secret.
No, it's not. It's not. But yeah, the whole argument for things being an open or solo or not, I think if you're going to want to encourage PvP, then yeah, cool, push it into open, remove the modules. But power play needs to have a really, really good look at it and actually change it.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, it is. It may not necessarily be a functionally valid argument, this social and private, the solo private open thing. But the point is, enough people think it is, or are worried about it being it, that it actually is, to all intents and purposes, because enough people are worried about it, if you see what I mean. And if there was a proper PvP structure put in place from the outset, because if you remember, when the game launched right at the start, it was implied that PvP was frowned upon by the Pilots Federation, and it doesn't matter because it would be rare anyway. That's what David Braben and the others were pitching at the time, because I don't think they actually fully appreciated the kind of people that were going to be playing this, and the moment they got in a ship, they tried to kill other people. Because at their heart, this is the point, all the Frontier guys at their heart, they're cooperative people, they're good people, they work together, they're a team, they're nice people. They don't immediately think people are going to be a bunch of bastards and start shooting each other.
They should have known
it's just
better.
human nature.
They should have known better.
Thought of that. Yeah, but they didn't think like that. So if they put a structure in place from the start where you can have two PvP factions doing PvP things, and then this parallel thing where people who didn't like PvP could do their own thing that wouldn't be affected by PvP stuff, everyone would be happy now. But they didn't use their own law.
But
at the
isn't
time
that
to do
called open play and private group?
If the two can't affect each other. But the argument, or at least the belief that people have with the system as it stands, is that these different modes can affect each other one way or another, and whether that's true or not, enough people believe it to damage the game as a whole. So yeah, they should have implemented something different and clear from the start that wouldn't have let that concern come in.
I do wonder how much the fact there is a solo mode come from the original Kickstarter promise of offline mode to start with. I mean, had Frontier not promised that, we might not even have a solo mode.
No, we'd still have open and private groups, because they always said you could have a system where you could just play with your friends and nobody else. But yeah, there wasn't a solo mode until they cancelled the offline thing. Not that it makes any real difference, because there's no functional difference between being in solo and being in a private group of one.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, I also wonder if the absence of the offline mode has something to do with the procedural generation of the galaxy and all that, because they've said in the past, I remember Davstot saying this at one point, that just the BGS information that gets generated it takes up a gigabyte of hard drive space per day. Okay, and that's just, you know, what, 100,000-ish, you know, inhabited systems inside the bubble. Well, what if you're having to procedurally generate and then store all kinds of data for 400 billion star systems across the galaxy, you know, locally on someone's PC? I imagine that amount of data would be several terabytes in and of itself, at a minimum.
Well,
I wonder if
the
maybe
systems
that
are only
plays
generated
into
when
it.
they're visited, though.
Right. But if you wanted to do that on, say, someone's PC, you wouldn't really be able to do that. Because once it gets generated once, it's there. It's taking up space.
I mean, you could just. I mean, that would be a
Yeah.
store it in the RAM whilst it's relevant for you, and then ditch it. Like, you know, and it takes a little bit longer. The galaxy map, maybe. I don't think that'd be too much of an issue.
I don't know,
Think
it seems
about
like
it.
an awful lot of data to try and store locally, though.
I mean, if you were to store all of it, but you'd only keep as much as you would need for that moment, you know, and the loading time to get a few numbers off of a spreadsheet stored in you know, somewhere else. Or if it was completely offline, it would all be on your computer, wouldn't it? So I suppose that's, I know. But Vortex has just said here, solo is useful because he's been there. He's been in a lot of crap hotels with crap internet, and it's handy to be in solo because he can still play.
Yes. And no, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of valid reasons to have the solo mode, really. It's just unfortunate due to the way some parts of the game have been designed. Seem to conflict for some people.
Yeah.
I think people play it for different reasons, don't they? And that's because there is so much that Elite Dangerous offers. You know, whether it be escapism for being, you know, the ultimate space fighter hero, or you want to go and you know, go and crap on someone in whatever ship they're in because you've had a rough day at work. You know, you've got the options to go and do it. Or if you just want to hang out with your friends and try and build an empire, you can do that. There's so many options, and so many people playing for different reasons that getting the balance right of, you know, making everybody happy is a really difficult task.
Oh,
It'd be-
I'd say impossible. It's actually impossible.
Yeah.
You literally
trying
can't please all the people.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you're trying to reconcile some incredibly and fundamentally different, you know, styles of play, and no game can cater to all play styles at one time. No way, no how. You know?
Especially not one that's 90% procedurally generated. So, you know.
Yeah, I think so. There's going to be some limitations, no matter what, that prevent things from being, you know, the ultimate in XYZ area for XYZ type of person. You know, that's just something I think that we're going to have to live with one way or another.
Yeah, I think. Are we going to come to a close? Are we going to come to a close with kind of some final thoughts? In particular, we don't know the answer. I think that's the.
Yeah,
Come to
I think that's
hours on here now.
if indeed there is an answer. Yeah.
Perhaps that's exactly how Frontier feel. I sometimes do wonder if you're trying to take the game in so many different directions. To me, it really always looks like that's what Frontier are trying to do. They're trying to please pretty much everyone. And you could sit in a room and you could sit with as many people or as few people as you want. And if the ultimate goal is always to try and please as many people as possible and upset as few people as possible, you just got to always be going in circles. And how can you ever come up with a workable solution?
Yeah, I don't think it's not something I'd want to be doing.
Yeah,
I think is what I want to say about it. Very much glad it's not me kind of situation.
With the whole power play thing, I've never actually bothered with the power play because it's been of zero interest to me in my particular game style. But I feel for people for whom it matters. So yeah, but yes, like you, I'm glad it's not going to affect me one way or another.
I mean, for me,
Okay, then.
the only reason I even touch it is for the modules, and that's it. I mean, otherwise it makes absolutely zero difference to me. So I guess we'll see what happens in the long run.
But yeah, I think that's the problem
it
with.
won't be too long before we hear back on that.
Yeah, and as usual, it's going to be the squeaky wheel that gets the oil on this one. So those that kind of are the biggest pushers on forums will probably get the decision going their way, whilst those who feel indifferent or don't feel strong enough to maybe go and leave a post don't necessarily get what they would like. So I guess my encouragement.
Does often seem to go that way.
My
Before we go,
encouragement
I'll
is
have
do
I
it.
like that phrase. I'm going to use that phrase now in future. Squeaky wheel it gets the oil. I'm going to write that one down. I like that.
Yeah. So, thanks everyone for stopping by. It'd be nice having you here as well, Commander Plater, and
Yeah, good to be here.
a bit of us invite you there, Turgeon. It was great for you
Yep. Yeah, thanks. It's been great fun.
to by. Yes, and Paroxsym as always. It's
Absolutely.
as well. Thank you. Not sure what's going on next week. Both Plater and Turgeon, you're always welcome to be involved in future streams.
Oh, thank
if you
you.
want to join in, just let us know.
I should definitely be
Cheers.
around next week because I'll still be slightly radioactive, so I will be around. And I'm going to finish on a shameless plug, actually, of my 24-hour charity stream starting tomorrow, 12 PM BST. That is, of course, the 9th of June. And it's 24 hours for charity, British Thyroid Foundation. Yeah, get yourself on my channel. Could be joined by, actually, all of the guys here. So it'd be
Yeah,
fantastic.
so we'll all be there at some
We'll all
point.
be
and
there.
a whole bunch of other people, too.
Yeah.
Do you have a live link, Plater, to your channel, or do I just copy a link? I'll put
I
it
will
in
be...
my,
Yeah, so I'll be putting it up in a minute, actually, after this stream. I'll be going back and putting the event
so
back up.
For now, I'll just copy a link to
Yep.
video description for everyone so they can go and find your channel. I'll put that in the live stream description box. Should be able to see
And
that.
I've made about 70 million credits during today's stream, too. Feels good, man.
Oh, that's really nice. I've been flying around a little bit randomly trying to engineer my Corvette. So before everyone else goes who's watching, I don't know what you guys want to do. I'll disconnect from Discord here and I'll chat to the stream for a few minutes. I don't know if you guys want to do the same.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to keep my stream up for just a little bit and talk to people for a little bit because they've been hanging around for a while and they've been incredibly patient. So I will definitely hang out with people here for a little bit.
Okay.
Look into the dark art of lip syncing now. So blame us, hashtag blame us, Scorpius.
Blame us, Scorpius.
Always blame the Scorpius. But yes, that's my next project. Dark art.
Okay then. Brilliant. Thanks again then.
Okay, so
Okay.
see you guys later then.
Yeah, speak to you tomorrow.
I will see all you guys tomorrow.
Yep, I'll be there tomorrow with you, Plater. I think it was 4 o'clock UK time.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Okay. Catch you soon.
Good. Okay, guys. So I am actually going to call time for my stream there, mainly because I'm going to save up my voice in preparation for tomorrow, because it's going to be 24 hours of me talking absolute rubbish. So I'm going to say thank you guys for watching. It's been absolutely fantastic. Please do make sure that you like, subscribe, follow on Twitch, and keep an eye out for when the stream goes live tomorrow, 12 PM BST. So guys, once again, thank you very much for watching. Commander Plater, out.